Okay, here we have Musket Battles 4.0. And here we have Conquest or Death, Germantown. Now, an interesting thing about refighting the Battle of Germantown is that Washington had this elaborate plan to come in by 4 different routes. A strategy that would have been quite an accomplishment for an expert, highly trained military force. That was not what he had. Now, the official way you do this in musket battles is to have 2 of the commands randomly not show up on the first turn. But I want to try something a little different. Okay, I have 4 commands. The way this works is on the pre-turn 1 Continental Army entrance, the first 2 chits I draw will be the only 2 chits that come on. Then on turn 1, I'll put all the chits in the cup and I'll draw them out. Of the 2 remaining chits that have yet to enter, the 2 remaining columns, the first one I draw will be the one that comes on. Then on turn 2, they'll all come on. Before I start, they'll all be positioned on their entrance roads. So I can't switch around with that. They're going to come in on the roads they're going to come in on. When they get there, I don't know. One of the advantages of coming on in several different columns is all these columns can arrive at could possibly arrive at pretty much the same time. Whereas if I just have 1 or 2 commands, they will all come on at night. But they're going to be stretched out. Maybe that's what Washington was going for. He wanted to hit the British lines from 4 different directions at exactly the same time. Good plan? Probably not going to work. But I want to try it out this way. And the cool thing about playing double blind solo is I can try these things out and say, let's just try it out this way and see what happens. Alright, enough jibber jabber. Let's go. Now here we are. I've got these all placed on the map. Now when they do enter, they're going to enter. I'll measure the front from the edge of the map where they come on. But they're just all on the map right now. First chit I draw is Sullivan. And this is Sullivan right here. Now he can move further than this, but when he reaches this point, he's now within a third of the move of an enemy unit, and he's in column, so he has to stop. The other chit I draw is Washington. Washington stops 1/3 away from the small detachment of Abercrombie's troops. Now it's turn 1. Things to note when playing Germantown. This is the Schuylkill River, and this is the Wissahickon Creek. Both are treated as rivers and you cannot cross them except at bridges. Over here is Frankfort Creek, and it is treated as a stream, which means there's no combat difference, but it does cost you 1/3 to move across it. Some things to note for this battle. Abercrombie is just here with 2 battalions. This block is just considered a detachment, as are both dragoon blocks, Pulaski and the Queen's Rangers. They're just considered detachments. A critical thing to note is the British cannot start in column. So even though this looks like I have them in column, they can't technically be in column. So the first turn, if I intend to move them in column, which I do, the first turn they lose 1/3 of their move switching into column. Alright, Sullivan moves first. Conway's coming out of column and attacking Abercrombie. Now they're in Chew House right here, also known as Cliveden, and Abercrombie can't be flanked. So even though this looks like a flank attack, there's no flanking because they're all bundled up in Chew House. An uncharacteristic thick stone building, treated as a fortification. Now he is elite, so he does ignore the first hit. The offhand chance he gets lucky, I'm backing him up. His last block will go right there, and he'll move his bags right there. So here you've got Sullivan's own men, Conway, and Mad Anthony Wayne. Next chit drawn is Smallwood. Since Smallwood is the additional chit to make its appearance, and you know what? This is green, and he's coming in the same route as Washington, so he would have been moved at the same time. So even though Green and Washington have different chits, since they're coming down the same road in column, when I draw Washington's chit, Green moves. They don't count as an extra command that could get lost. Smallwood's coming on though. Smallwood's got his regular militia, and they're actually being escorted down with 2 detachments of Continental Regulars. And now the British move. The British advance forward. They've heard a kerfluffle with Abercrombie's light troops up at Cliveden. Howe's column forms into column and heads up the Old York Road. Now he takes the bags with him. This group of troops are actually under Kniphausen's command. Currently Howe is the army commander, Kniphausen's not here, they're all under his command. So until Nipphausen shows up, they all move when Howe is drawn. But since Howe's over here, they can't attack. They're just moving up to present a force. Hopefully distract them while Howe attacks them in the flank. That's how he won it in New York, and it's how he won at Brandywine. Seems to work every time. Now ordinarily with 2 players, seeing that there's a column coming down Ridge Road, the prudent British player would move Gray down to Vandeling's Mill here, where the Wissahickon joins the Schuylkill. Playing double blind solo, I know that he wouldn't know anything about these guys coming down. So far as they know, everything is cool. Now Armstrong has been delayed, and this delay actually works to his advantage. He won't enter till next turn. Hopefully Howe will come up by then and start moving towards Germantown, which is what his plans are, to come up here to this point and then come across. If he moves before Smallwood, he'll do just that, and Smallwood will encounter him and attack him from behind. If Smallwood is drawn first, he'll come right down this road and run smack dab into the British Army. Again, I'm playing double blind. They don't know. A lot of stumbling around in the dark and the fog. And at Germantown, all of day 1 is played in the fog. You can only see 1/3 of a foot move, which is what I have my compass set to. So that although there's artillery on the board, other than being used defensively, on day 1, which should be the full battle, it can only defend. Alright, last drawn is Washington. He sends Pulaski around, has Sterling join the fun at Cliveden. He pulls his bags off to the side. And Green simply advances up the Germantown pike. Gotta stay a third away. Historically, and frustratingly for Washington, Cliveden, also known as Chew House, held out for most of the morning. Let's see how they do here. Conway's attack. Ineffective. Although they did get 1 hit, which the elite status of that block absorbs. Sterling's men assault Chew's house, wipe out Abercrombie's defenders. I'm going to put the casualties over here, but they do so at a cost. Now what this means in musket battles is this guy is now spent and he can't rally to fresh until the bags are deployed. But you don't want to deploy the bags until you've got a line held up by the defenders that you can then support with your bags. If they've unpacked the bags here, then Howe can hold his line back here, and every time they break they're going to have to run all the way back to the bags. They'll be out of the battle before they get back. You know, it's an 8-turn day. It takes a turn to run back, turn to rally, a turn to come. There's 3 turns. 3 turns of an 8-turn day, almost half the day, if the bags are too far back. And now it's turn 2. First drawn is Green. Green marches his troops up and comes out of column in Germantown. Next, Howe's troops move. They come within 1/3 of the Continental Army, but they're not there to fight the army. So they stop and they form a line. However, Howe's column is on a mission. Now Washington, because I'm playing double blind, the Continental Army does not know about this. Nor do they know that the Continental bags are right there. Sullivan reorganizes his troops, brings up his bags, and prepares to advance with the rest of the Continental line. Smallwood's column advances until they get within 1/3 of the enemy troops, and they also must stop. Now Armstrong comes on. He comes on down. He says, What's that? Could that be? Yes, it's the end. The rear end of the British column. And he attacks. He attacks, and he has essentially sacked the British bags. Although the British artillery is technically in contact with the British bags, they're in column. They're not in line defending the bags. The whole column is not ready to fight at this exact moment. In the darkness and the fog, panic ensues. The 4.0 rules are very clear about the endgame situation. The worst you can do is rout them by inflicting 50% or more casualties. They are considered broken if you capture an enemy baggage train, which has happened here. Now, there is a concept of making a voluntary withdrawal, which is when you pack up your own bags. And then there's rules for actually physically move your troops. They can't attack anymore off the battlefield while being pursued by the enemy.
Here I got a little confused and started performing a voluntary retreat. It's interesting to see how this is done, so I followed through and executed a voluntary retreat.
Say at this point, they're still preparing for a battle over here. They don't know about this over here. Now it's late morning, and Nipphausen shows up with his bags. Well, what a fine mess he finds. First is Washington's troops. They charge forward. Next is Smallwood's troops. They charge forward. Now ordinarily, in musket battles, when a unit has to retreat, it will push back and flip to spent any fresh unit it encounters. Unless that unit is actually a supporting unit. Unless it's just a detachment. So if these detachments retreat from here, it won't affect the block, the full-size block. But now, the horns have been sounded. Full retreat. Pull out. The British aren't staying. Howe is drawn. Kniphausen is on the field, so Kniphausen's troops, all these over here, move when he moves. Howe, however, can begin retreating. Now here we see the Queen's Rangers have actually already passed the point that they need to turn down. Not wishing to get caught up with the main crowd, they're going to spin around and try to recover their tracks. I'm going to cost them a third, trying to straighten this mess out here where they've passed back this, so they can move 2/3, but in road columns, so it's 4/3. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can put them back a little bit because I was kind of jumping over corners and stuff. Actually, we'll put them right back to here. They won't step onto the main road quite yet. There's Howe leading the advance to the rear. Next, Sullivan charges forward. Now Kniphausen moves. They have turned tail and run like bunnies. I can't stay and try to hold these guys back. I have to move away. They hear and they race right off. I have them off to the side of the map. They have got off. Anything that doesn't get off is going to go over here in the dead pile. Now with Kniphausen. Armstrong. Armstrong's troops switch into column and race forward. They still have to keep a third back, and that's a third. And I stick Smallwood in front. And then finally, Green moves. He races forward a full move. And now it's turn 4. First up is Washington. They race forward and contact the British troops, but of course the British troops in this simultaneous movement will be much farther ahead by now. Next is Armstrong's troops. They could chase and run into that, come out of column into that, but now when the British gets drawn, they'll just move away. So they just hold. And now Howe's troops come racing down the road. What I really want to find out is where the back end of the line ends up. The back of the line gets that far. Kniphausen is pulled off the road. And the last one to move is Smallwood, and this is super critical because now Smallwood can cut off Kniphausen's retreat. So here they are in line, ready to cross the bridge at Vanderling's Mill. So they'll spend a third getting into column, and then they can move 2/3, doubled to 4/3 in column. Smallwood's main force actually goes into column, moves 2/3 and comes out of column. Maybe they can reach somebody if they don't get off. Here we are in the afternoon and the fog is still clinging. First moving is Armstrong. They race all the way to there. We're just going to move Howe back here. Right, we've got 2 combats to do here. Cavalry running down Gray's brigade. Pulaski's dragoons are destroyed in their enthusiasm. The detachment is destroyed, but of course detachments don't count. Let me see if they're worth points. It turns out detachments are worth 1 point, and the multiplier for the broken army is ×3, so they're actually worth 3 points. They don't count towards the army breaking, at 50% of its base of its non-detachment strength, but they do count for points. And now Gray moves, along with the rest of Kniphausen's command. I'm going to play out one more turn. Turn 6, late afternoon, dinner time, and all that really matters, because they're just going to move off, is if Smallwood moves before Kniphausen. Now here's a side note, and it's literally a side note. If you can tell in this, the top is actually larger than the bottom, so when these roll, they roll in a circle. I just dropped this one on the floor. It didn't roll under something or for miles away because it lands and then rolls like that. Cool. Now by straight draw, Kniphausen was drawn and Smallwood hadn't been drawn yet. Smallwood wants to go first. He needs to roll a 1 or a 2. A 2. Smallwood jumps ahead of Kniphausen. Now Kniphausen can try to jump ahead of Smallwood. He needs to roll a 4 or less. A 5. He does not. So in fact, Smallwood goes first. But though he tries, he really can't prevent Kniphausen from moving off the map. So the British army was routed. although all the British Army lost was 2 detachments. Now one was an elite detachment, I'll say that's worth 2 points. So 2 points for the elites, 1 point for the regular detachment, that's 3 points, times 3 because of the forced retreat, and Pulaski's cavalry detachment, also 1 point. So 9 points versus 1 point. When the numbers are this small, it means it's pretty huge. They got 4 times as many troops lost, or points. But the critical point here is that the British Army was forced to retreat back, but it's retreating back in order, essentially full strength. But a bigger note, of course, is that the Continental Army completely pantsed the British Army. Washington did to Howe what Howe had done to him twice before. He outflanked him and broke his line. That was a very good game. Please, let me know what you think of this playthrough, or tell me what you like about this system, because it's really cool, it's fun. As always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.